Hello guys and welcome back to another web development episode. Today we are at lesson number 7, and if you didn't watch any of the previous episodes, I do recommend you to watch those first so you can understand better what's going on today. So without any further ado, let's get started. Okay, so right now what I have open is our little folder in which we had our homepage, resource, and wallpaper, and I just created one more HTML file which is at this point empty. I have here Sublime up with all the files open, and I do also have Firefox right here with our page. So let's dive straight into it. So with the file created, I went here to the home page, and those links that you could see there, they had a link. I just modified them to go straight to our second HTML file. So let's start writing in it. So first things first, I'm gonna put this doc type HTML. Then we're gonna open up HTML file. We're gonna open up the head. We're gonna put here link. We're gonna put that it's a style sheet, and we're gonna put here the path, which is resources.css. Then we're gonna put a title, and that's gonna be the second page. And we're gonna close the head, and now we're gonna open up the body. So I'm gonna start with what I want to start, and I'm gonna close the file. So right here, that's all that we have at this point. So we're gonna refresh the page, go to our link, and this is our link. Now you can see this is empty for the moment being, but we have a title, we have the resources.css linked, everything is there. Okay, so let's go for what I wanted to show you. So first things first, there are blocks. So you could just go ahead. I'm gonna go ahead and open up the backwards here. You can see we have our viewport, which is this point of the browser that actually shows us the page, and I can scroll into it, and you can see straight into the viewport there are placed these elements right here, line after line after line. But if you go on basically any page, you can see that everything is organized in basically blocks. So those blocks, basically, if you look into the viewport, let's say we have one at the middle. It splits at the middle. Here we have one more. So this is a little box right here. So this is like a little box. Here's another little box, and here is one big box. And each box has its elements either in line with its buttons, with everything laid out. So what we're going to do today is do these kind of boxes here, these block elements, these blocks, and I'm going to also show you how to make forms. Now I'm not going to show you how to make them usable. I'm just going to show you how to basically build them, and when we're going to get into PHP, I'm going to show you how to actually use them and actually give them some function, so they are not there just basically for design purposes. So what I'm gonna do first is go into our CSS files. You know what? No, let's not do that. Let's go straight into the body and put our little block, which is div. So you want to put div, then you can put style, and we're gonna put width, and this is gonna be 50% of our viewport width. So other than pixels, millimeters, and percents, so let's go all over the units that you can use to actually measure lengths in CSS. Sorry. So first things first, there is pixels. So you can put 50 pixels, or you could put millimeters, or you can put centimeters. But you can also put percents, and what will what this will do is get the whole screen width and give you 50%. Or, as I talked about before, we have these viewports, and you can get 50% or any percentage of the viewport width and height. And in order to do that, you can put viewport width. So this is percents. So this is percents of our viewport width. And here we can put height. And you can put 50. You know what? Let's not put 50. Let's put 95% of our viewport height. But let's say you interchange them and use viewport height on both of them. Well, the length of the width will be 50% of our viewport height. So if the viewport is, let's say, 1700 pixels, our width, because 50% of that, will be basically 850 pixels. So basically that's how that works. You can also use them interchanged, but you will get different heights. So you can put viewport width and viewport height just in order to do that. And we're gonna go ahead to our little heading. Now you can't really see the block right now. I'm gonna also close it. So in order to do that, what I'm gonna do is go ahead into our CSS, put the little block element, and now go to border and do it solid 1 pixel black. No, not edge. Firefox. And now you can see our little box. But you might have noticed that there is some empty space, and if I do this 50% of our viewport and put one more, basically it's going to exceed this because we have this little space right here. So how can we fix that? So first things first, I'm gonna do that in the style part. So I'm gonna go here into our inline CSS, because I want different width, height, and positions for each and one of our blocks. So I'm gonna put position, and I put relative, and what I'm gonna do is put right -8 pixels. Or was it? Yeah, right, -8 pixels, and bottom -5 pixels, I think. Oh no, without minus. They were positive. Excuse me. Let's concentrate for something else. So you can see now it moved to the left 8 pixels and to the top 5 pixels. Let's put to the top also 8 pixels. And now you can see this is basically stuck to the margin. So what I'm going to do now is actually put 9 pixels. I'm going to show you immediately exactly why I did this, but you can see now we don't see those borders, but we see our little line that actually splits up everything that we should have known. So back here to width and height, I'm going to make the height 100%. And now refreshing, if I need to scroll, it's going to scroll basically like 1 pixel. So what I'm going to do is go down here to bottom and put 1 more pixel. You can see now it fits basically perfect. Now of course this doesn't really matter because you mostly are going to have a footer and it's going to fill up the space. So you will basically have to scroll anyway, but this is just for the sake of the demonstration. So let's put 9 pixels with 9 pixels. And right now here you can see that we have our height. Okay, so let's put 2 of these. But the position can't really be relative right now. So what we could do is put absolute and put right 0 pixels and top 0 pixels, and you will see immediately why I did everything. So position absolute literally goes, and now you can see it actually goes overlaid with that. So what I am going to do is basically move this to the right a bit so we can have a bit more space. But now if you look, there basically this is just 1 pixel below it and some more at the and 1 pixel to the left. But you might ask, why does it interlace then if it's just 1 pixel and it's 50? It just should occupy all of it. Well, there is a simple answer to that. This is position absolute, and you can see we have this little scroll bar. Now, if we wouldn't have that scroll bar, this border line would be just straight here at the margin of our screen, just at the side of our screen here, and that would move it to the right, and you would have just this border interlacing and actually having just one thick 2 pixel border instead of this overlay. So if I go right here and put the height to 80% of our viewport height, so that bar can actually disappear, you can see now there's just 1 pixel overlay. Now we still do have that border, but in order to fix that, what I'm gonna do is basically move it to -1 pixel to the top and -1 pixel to the right. And what that will do is actually move it to kind of like the same position, and you can see 1 thick border in the middle. So if I put right -2 pixels now, this border will basically interlace, and we'll have just 2 little blocks to work with. But as I told you, we have that little bar, and that actually doesn't really let us, you know, work with that. So in order to fix that, we could put sizes and actually make mathematical operations into our width and height boxes, but I'm not going to do this in this episode. We're going to do that later. So with our little problem kind of fixed, let's put something inside these. So first things first, I'm going to go ahead and put one heading in here. So this is a sample heading. Okay. And now refreshing this, you can see we have our little heading in here, or big heading in here, and we're gonna put a form in the next one so that I can show you. Now in these boxes you can put everything that we put in here and actually make it in that little box and stay there, so you can actually have a good layout of your page. Now why do I prefer position absolute rather than position relative? Now look, if I put absolute to both, absolute, so I'm gonna put, that's gonna be left -1 pixel, forgot my column right there, and put top -1 pixel. You can see basically it's the same position, but what the difference is, well, if you would look around here, you could see that compared to relative, putting it to the position it should have been, relative to position it should have been to the left and right, what we did is actually put an absolute position in which we kind of give coordinates relative to the margins. So if you want your box to be 5 pixels from the left side of your screen, you put here 5 pixels, it's going to be right here. And then let's say you want it lower, so you put this guy's height, and it's going to be basically here, but with a 5 pixel space there. So you kind of have more control relative to the screen margins compared to the position you should have had before and just moving it with those coordinates. So what we're going to do in the second block, we're going to put a form, and there are multiple attributes that you can put. First things first, it's method. Now there you can put a get or post, but we're not going to use any of those because I'm going to explain more about that when we're going to do the PHP video, because at this moment it has no relevance and this form will have no function, and we're going to give function to it later. And I'm going to show you actually also you'd need some more tools and stuff, but let's not get overly complicated with that right now. So in our form we could put more things. So I'm going to put input, and then you can put type and put something like text, and then we could have our style attribute, which will give us height, width, and borders and everything. Well, what else we could put is value, and inside it you can put anything. And also you can have a placeholder, and that will be put your text in here. And basically you can also have a name for it, because that's important. When we're going to do PHP, that's important to have our little names, because this is all our input, because when you want to get data from it, you have to tell it which part of a form and which and anything that you gotta get data from. So you want to tell it, you know, just go to the text box called name, to the input thing that has the name text box, and get the data from there and give it over. And the data from it is basically value. So the data is submitting to your PHP code. It's going to be this little value thing. So if I'm going to refresh, you can see your little text box right here, the text box. Now it doesn't do anything no matter what you do. So you can put your text, but you can see when I refresh the page, okay, you can see it puts the default value, we put it in, and if there is no text in it, you can see the placeholder takes place here. So it has this little gray text that when you start typing, it actually disappears. Now you know what I'm gonna do here, back in our inside here, I'm gonna put a padding so we can have like more space between those. So padding, I'm gonna make that a 10 pixel padding. Well, this didn't work really well now because we modified everything. So basically what it did is moved each border, so we kind of messed up everything. So yeah, we're gonna take care of that when we're gonna do the operations. So when I wanted to put padding, I forgot that this could happen. So we actually messed up our borders because it moved the borders 5 pixels to the exterior to actually let us put the padding. So what I'm going to do instead is go to our form and into style, I'm going to put margin, and I'm going to make that 10 pixels so that is actually lower. Now into our text boxes we can also have some style elements, so some inline CSS, and for that you can have width, you can have height, and you can also have things like border. And I'm going to put border, and we're going to make it solid 1 pixel gray, and we're gonna have border radius. So what this means is the corners have a radius. If it's 0, it's gonna be a perfectly square corner. But if you put a radius, what that means, it will take a circle and put it up here. So you know what, that's better explained with paint. So you have your little text box. This is your little text box right here. And what this border does is basically, let me hold shift to make a perfect circle. It gets a circle with a radius to put in, let's say 6 pixels. Let's say this is 6 pixels, even if it's not. And then basically comes and erases this part, and you're let off with a round corner that used a circle that is 6 pixels in radius, and this is your circle radius, and it is well, 6 pixels long. So I'm gonna move this here. So this is your little radius and your circle, and this is not shown. So basically this is not shown, but that's basically the working principle. So that's basically the way it works. So we're gonna put our little radius, refresh. You can see our little round corners to our text box. Now you can also put font family, font size, any literal property that you can think of, more or less. Next, we're gonna do the next thing. So let's say you want to make a form for creating an account, or maybe logging into your account. So what you're gonna do is put one more box right here, and it's gonna put value. I'm gonna put any value, and the placeholder I'm gonna be make a password. Okay, and at name I'm gonna put pass box, just for the sake of it. And let's say you want your password, but you can see now everybody can see your password, and that's not good. Now let's put them on separate lines with that little break line thing. So you want to put your password, but you realize everybody can see it. So what do you do in case of that? Well, you change the type from text to, you guessed it, password. That's basically straightforward, and now it's gonna look the same, but when you put text in it, it's gonna actually mask it off with those little discs. Next thing in the list, next thing that you can put in a form basically is input type radio. Well, what would that be? Well, I'm gonna show you immediately. So you put a value, let's say option 1. You don't have placeholders, you have a name. That's gonna be the first option list. This is not gonna be the default checked one, and you want to put some value into it so it has some text. So I'm gonna put some inline inline elements. So just like this div is basically a block element, this is an inline element. It's basically the same thing, but it's just one line, not the whole block. So you're gonna put this, and I'm gonna put option number 1. We're gonna close that and put a little line break, and we're gonna put input type radio, and you're gonna put value option 2 and name first option list, and nope, you're gonna put here our little span. I'm gonna put option number 2. Close this and put a line break. But you want this to be the default option, so you're gonna put checked in it. Let's copy this thing, because I want to show you something else, and I'm going to put instead of name, I'm going to put second option list. So even though it's in the same form, so let's write this down, and now we are going to discuss it. So refreshing this, you have options. So you can see what I forgot is this line break here. Okay, so you can see we have two option lists, and each of them has option number 2 default checked. So in your list, you can select option 1 and option 2. You have two lists. Now let's discuss a bit what we just wrote in here. So the checked one is actually the default one that's checked. Simple enough till now. Now what's gonna happen is, if you have here your little radio buttons, you have a value and you have a name. So each list, so each of the one list items has the same name, so it can identify that it's from the same radio check thing. And then once you hit submit first option list, it's gonna submit the value of the checked one. So let's say you have submit first option list and option number 1 is checked, then PHP will get the value of option 1. Else if the option number 2 is checked, it's gonna get as a value option number 2. So basically once you submit it, it's gonna get the value of the checked one, and it's gonna get what you put inside your value thing here. Thing with text boxes is also submitting the value string right here, but that value is actually modifiable by putting data into the text box. So that's basically the way it works. Now why did we have to put span is because these radio buttons don't have text. So they don't have text. So if you look, if I remove those spans, all this text right here would have been removed, and you'll just have these little circles here. So this actually allows us to put some text into it so you can see what you're actually clicking. Now let's say you want, you know what, I'm going to put one more line into between these so you can actually see which one's which. And now we're going to put one more input type, and I think that's check box, I guess, if I remember correctly. Yep, that's good. That's good. And you can put a name to it, and it's gonna be this checked item. And again, you have this option to be checked or not. And then again, you will have, you guessed it, to put your little span thing here, just so you're gonna have a little text into it. So that's, let's say this is do you want free shipping for your product? Let's say you're just selling stuff on your website, and you do this. So then you put multiple options. So input type checkbox, and you put another name for it. So this is another, yeah, let's put short names. So checkbox number 2, and you don't want this to be checked. And again you put this little text in here, so you want do you want, you know what, free shipping for a product, just without do you want. So express shipping for your product. So let's assume you're doing this for a website that actually sells stuff on it. And let's close our form. And now if you look, now these, again, we didn't put the break lines. Okay, so now refreshing, you can see we have this, and you can just check which one you want, but by default this one is checked because we put the checked attribute into it. And then if you, when you want to submit your form, is basically just put here input, type submit, and then you put here value submit your request. Press F5, and right now you can see we have a little button that actually submits our request. But let's say you don't like it this way, just as a plain button. Well, we're going to talk about how you can style that later in another episode. So yeah guys, this is for now. So thank you for watching. If you enjoyed it, give it a thumbs up, and if you want to see more, click that subscribe button. See you next time on HowToIT.